In this lesson, we'll continue posing our extremes for our gallop animation. So we now have about 5 of our poses in. Okay, we have the horse in its total suspension pose as it's coming up in the air right now. It's looking really nice. And this is actually the pose around this time where it really shows the speed at which the horse is moving as it leaps up in the air. Okay, and then we also now have a pose where our horse is now landing, okay, with the right pelvic limb. So let's go ahead and continue. We're on the 6th pose. We'll just go there, and we could start with the right thoracic limb. We can start moving that forward, and notice how it's straightening out a little bit more here. Moving more forward. Remember to keep in mind the reference points and follow through. So we'll also want to roll up the fetlock a bit. Okay, and now for this left front limb, we're going to want to bring that now forward, and that is more V-shaped, as we can see. So we're going to add that pose in there. Great. So that's looking nice. And then for our right pelvic limb, that's starting to come back a little bit more. And another thing I want to note here is the fetlock. Okay, as the horse is landing here, because of the weight, the fetlock is really going to come a little bit closer to the ground, and we do have a fetlock attribute that we can adjust. So let's go ahead and select that attribute and middle mouse button click to the left, to our left, so we can bring the fetlock down a little bit more here to show the weight, like so. And let's see, do we have it coming back as much as we should? Maybe we could bring it back a little bit more. Great. But now notice as we get to frame 5, the fetlock is still up, and even frame 4. So what we could do to have some nice follow through here is just on frame 5, we could just bring up the fetlock here. So as we scrub through, boom, it pushes down where it needs to on frame 6. Excellent. Okay, so now we could go to our left limb, and notice that's coming down a little bit more, about to plant. And we also need to roll up the hoof in preparation to that, so we could get some nice follow through just prior to it planting. So we'll scrub back and forth. Great. Excellent. So once we have this, we can now move to our frame 7 pose, and this is where our left pelvic hoof is now planted. So again, we'll put in a value of 0 for the Y, a value of 0 for the X, and also move it back a little bit for the follow through there. Remember, keeping in mind the arcs. Notice what type of movement we're getting. That's looking really nice already. Okay, wait till we see a playback of this. It's gonna look like we're making great progress already. Excellent. So once we have this in now, okay, where the hoof is pretty much planted on frame 7, we can now work on our next pose, which is going to be this right back limb, and this is where it now kicks back. So let's go ahead and have it kick back. Okay, and then we're also going to want to zero out the fetlock here, because since there's no weight, okay, we don't want any weight to be shown on the leg since it's going to be getting thrown out. And we'll also roll it back, the fetlock, just a little bit here, okay, for the follow through as it's coming back. Great, and we'll probably want to bring that out a little bit more. Okay, we want to say, where's this leg in reference to our left that's planted? Great, so now as we move to our right, notice how that's about to plant, so we're going to want to really straighten that out. This is where it's really straightened out here. Our right thoracic limb. Oh, I'm going to undo so I could select that again and bring it out. Great. And also notice that our left, that's coming up a little bit more, so we're going to want to bring that up some more. And also roll down the fetlock just a little bit here. Great. Excellent. So we're getting some nice poses in here, as we see. Excellent. Okay, let's go to our right pelvic limb on frame 6, and notice how it needs to be planted, but right now it's not. Okay, so we have an incorrect pose here, but all we need to do to fix that is to go to our translate Y, make sure we have a key, as well as our rotate X, to make sure we have those both zeroed out, giving them keys there. Excellent, much better. Okay, and also for frame 7, let's go ahead and bring down the right pelvic or right thoracic limb, or left. Oh, excuse me, that's the right. I'm sorry about that. We want to bring that down just to make sure that the follow through is correct here. And then what we could also do on frame 6 is just bring that up just a little bit. Great. So that's looking nice. And we can move on to our next pose on frame 8. Okay, this is now where our right thoracic limb is now planted on the floor. Excellent. So knowing that, we can now zero out our Y, zero out our X, and also bring back the limb a little bit here. Okay. Great. And then for our front or left thoracic limb, we can now start bringing that forward. Okay, as it's getting thrust forward. And now at about this pose, notice as the left limb is starting to come forward, the right limb, this right front limb is planted. So that's another reference we can use for our animation. Excellent. Now as we get to our back left pelvic, we can go ahead and zero out our rotate X, being that the foot is planted, as well as our Y. We could also kick it back. Okay, keeping in mind the speed and the as the horse is moving throughout its gait. And bring that back, and we can also bring back the fetlock. So again, we'll middle mouse button and click and drag a little bit to the left, to our left, so we can bring that down slightly. Great. And now for this right limb, it's really starting to kick back. Okay, so we'll go ahead and bring that up. And we're getting to about a point where the back limb here is going to be straightened as fully as it can, as well as the right limb. And to note about that, it doesn't really pass a 90-degree angle, so we can also use that in mind, keep that in mind. But we do want to add exaggeration again to our poses in CG, because that adds a little bit more life and even realism to our poses. We don't want to go exactly off of real life, because then we fall into problems where we get our characters looking a bit stiff. Great, so we have this pose now, and we're almost done. We can now move to our pose on frame 9, and this is where our back right limb is really kicking back the most. Okay, so remember, keep it in mind that 90-degree angle and just stretching it a little bit more than that. We'll go ahead and roll it back, and also roll back the fetlock there to really show the thrust. Okay, great. And then we can go to our left and really kick that forward. Okay, and then also roll up the fetlock for the follow through there. Excellent. And now for our left pelvic limb, we can go ahead and bring that up and also zero out the fetlock. Okay, because there's no weight on that now. The weight is now on the front limbs there. And we could also roll back our hoof. Great, so we'll roll that back, and let's see if we can bring it back a little bit more. Great. Now as far as our right thoracic limb, we can select that, zero out the rotate X since the foot is planted, okay, and also zero out the Y, and even bring that back along with increasing our fetlock. So let's go ahead and bring that back some. Okay. Great. And if it's getting locked up, we are going to be animating again the up and down for our center of mass control. Okay, so we'll adjust it so we don't get any major popping at all. Don't want to avoid the popping, but here's what we have so far. It's looking really nice. Okay, we could even test out our fetlock attribute to make sure everything is looking right as far as that goes. Great. Excellent. And even the fetlock for our left limb, and let's say on frame 8 for our right limb, we go ahead and zero out the fetlock here, and then the weight comes in on frame 9. Excellent. Great. So we're just about done, and what we'll do now is stop the lesson here, and in the next lesson we'll work on posing out our last pose, as well as working on the initial up and down phase of our center of gravity.